There is an iron chain that closes a challenge circle. And there is exactly one law about it, and every child in the ninefold learns it before they learn to swim. I had my hand on it. It was cold and wet, and thicker than my wrist, and 800 people had stopped making any sound at all, and the woman beside me with the law in her hands said, quietly, so that only I could hear it, "If you lift that you are not one of us anymore. Not tonight. Not ever." I said, "I know." The man in the circle, who was about to lose everything, looked at me across 40 feet of wet ground, and he shook his head once, small, the way you tell a dog not to. I have never in my life been able to leave a thing alone. I lifted the chain. It started 11 weeks before that, in a storm, in a clearing, with a work song about mud. Nobody sings in the ninefold because it is beautiful. We sing because of the fog. Peat cutting is done on flat, wet ground in weather that comes down like a lid, and you can lose a man 8 feet away, so every cutting family has a line they sing and answers it up and down the row all day. Ours is 9 verses long. It has no tune to speak of, and every verse is about mud. There is a verse about the specific mud in the third bank that my great-grandmother wrote as an insult. My family has been going up and down that song for 200 years, and not one of us has ever thought about it for a single second. That is the entire mystery. People are still disappointed. I was 23 that autumn, and I was a peat cutter's daughter, and unranked, which is the polite word, and on the night of the storm I was out on the Highwood Road at the 9th hour, with everything I owned in a wrapped sheet. I was leaving. I am going to say that plainly here at the start, because I did not say it plainly for 11 weeks, and it cost me. Nothing dramatic had happened. My mother had been dead a year, my brother Tam had married, and the cottage had gone right and proper to him and his wife, who is kind, and there was a place for me in it. And every day for a year I had woken up in a house where I was a spare part, and had gone out on the cut, and come home and done it again. And one evening I had put 4 things in a sheet, and walked out into a storm without a destination, at 23, because I could not think of a reason to be anywhere. So when I say I found him, I want it understood what was doing the finding. The clearing is 900 paces off the wood road. I went into it because the wind was taking the rain sideways, and there is a stone lip on the north edge of it you can get under. There was already something there. It was black, and it was the size of a cart, and I could not get any sense of it as an animal at first, only as an amount. And then the lightning went, and I saw the ribs move. I did not do anything brave. I stood there for a very long time. I have been asked about this on 3 continents of that kingdom by now, and everyone wants the brave thing, and there was not one. I stood in the rain and thought, that is a wolf, and it is the largest one there has ever been, and it is going to die tonight, and I am going to have to walk back past it. Then I looked at the eye. I know what a beast looks like when it is dying and does not want to. I have watched every animal my family ever owned go out, and they fight it, all of them, every time, to the last quarter hour. This one was not fighting anything. It was lying in the wet with its eye open, and it was waiting, patiently, the way you wait for a cart. There was a wound low on its left side that had been open long enough to have stopped being clean, and it had not been packed. And there was no shelter built, and no fire, and no attempt at anything, and even standing there soaked and stupid at 23 I could see the shape of it. That thing had not been brought down. It had lain down. I sat down about 4 feet away with my back against the stone lip. "I am not going to touch you," I said. "I have nothing to do it with. I have 4 things in a sheet, and one of them is a spoon." The rain came down. "I am also not going anywhere," I said. "I have nowhere to be. That is the entire situation." And then, because it was black dark and cold, and I could not see anything, and I have been trained since I was 5 years old to make a noise in the fog so that whoever is out there knows a person is still there. I sang the mud song. All 9 verses. Then the whole thing again. My mother's verse about the third bank, which is filthy. The one about the ford that does not scan. I sang badly, on a wet stone, to an animal I fully expected to be dead by the 11th verse, for something close to half an hour. Somewhere in the middle of it, it moved its head. Not much, enough to put it nearer. And around the 14th verse it made a sound I have thought about every week since, which was not a wolf sound at all. It was the sound a person makes when they have decided something and it hurts. Then the shape of it began to change. I have seen the shift 100 times. Half my village can do it. It is quick, and it is undramatic, and it is nothing like what happened in that clearing. This took a long time, and it went wrong twice, and it made a noise, and I got up off the stone and went backward until the trees stopped me, and when it finished there was a man face down in 4 inches of water, in a burned clearing at the 9th hour, with a wound in his side that a man cannot survive as easily as a wolf can. He got a hand under himself. He got up onto one knee in the mud, streaming, enormous, black-haired, and he lifted his head and looked at me. And I want it recorded that I did not scream, faint, or otherwise distinguish myself. What I said was, "You are the king." "Yes," said Hadrian of the Ninefold. Then he said, "Do not stop," which I did not understand for 11 weeks, and then his eyes went past me into the trees, and I turned around. The trees were full of people. I do not know how many. 40, 60. They had been there long enough to be soaked through, and they had not made one sound. Rank warriors in wet iron, and their captain at the front with his mouth open. An old woman with a lantern that had gone out, 4 half-grown boys, a healer with a bag she had not opened. Every single one of them was looking at me. That is when I fainted. Not at the wolf, not at the shift, at 60 people who had watched me sing a filthy verse about the third bank to their king. He caught me. I have been told this so many times by so many people that it has stopped being a memory and become a piece of furniture. He came up off that knee with a hole in his side and got both arms under me before I went into the water. And then he went down too. And the healer finally opened the bag. That is the whole of what happened in the clearing. Everything else you have heard about that night, and by now you have heard a great deal, was made up afterward by people who were cold and frightened and needed it to mean something. I woke in my brother's house with the entire village in the doorway. By the 11th day there was a name for me. By the 3rd week there was a ballad, and it had a chorus, and the chorus had my name in it, and my name does not scan. And there is a line in it about my hair being like the moon on water, which I was in a storm. I looked like a wet dog. By the 5th week there were ribbons for sale in the market at 3 copper. Blue ones. Wolf singer ribbons. A man from 2 valleys over was making them. By the 7th week the clearing had become a place. People walked out there. They left things flowers first, then cups, then coin, then a shoe, which I have never had explained to me, and somebody built a low wall of stones around the spot where he had been lying, and children went out to reenact it, and a girl of about 9 came to my brother's door and asked, with total seriousness, whether I would sing at her aunt's wedding, because it would be lucky. I said no. She cried. I sang at the wedding. The verse about the third bank is now sung in the Ninefold at harvest festivals by people who have never cut a sod of peat in their lives and do not know what any of the words mean. And through all of it, from the king nothing, I was brought up to the hold in the 2nd week, as a guest, which is a word doing an enormous amount of work. I had a room. I had a wage I had not asked for. I was given, over 11 weeks, a great deal of pleasant nothing. He would not be in a room with me. I do not mean he was cold. Cold I could have worked with. He was scrupulous. He would come into the great hall and register that I was in it, and his face would do a thing that lasted about a quarter of a second, and then he would conduct an entire evening's business with his back at an angle to where I was standing, and leave through the far door. 11 weeks. He asked me nothing. He did not ask me what I had done in that clearing, or how I had found him, or what I had seen, and I was the only living witness to whatever that had been. And the most powerful man in the north did not want one word of it. Every soul in that hold had a theory. The kindest was that a king cannot be seen to owe an unranked woman his life. The one they liked best was that he was above the whole business. Mine, by the 9th week, was that he was ashamed of me. If you want to know what actually happened in that clearing, because it was not what 800 people spent 3 months singing about, and when it finally came out it very nearly ended him stay with me, and follow along so you do not lose the thread. It gets a great deal harder before it gets kind. Wulfric of the Stone Runs was the war leader of the Eastern Reaches, and he was the only person at that hold who had never once asked me to sing. He was pleasant to me. That was the thing. He was pleasant to me in a way that had arithmetic underneath it, and he had been doing arithmetic since the night in the wood, and his sums were as follows: an alpha king missing for 2 days, a search sent into the wrong valley by the king's own written order, a wound nobody in that hold had ever given an account of, and a man who had not taken the shift once in 11 weeks, in front of anyone, since he made his move at the autumn gathering, in front of the whole of the ninefold, and he made it warmly. He proposed as an honour that the wolf singer of the high wood should sing to the king's wolf before the assembled pack, so that all 9 valleys could witness what only 60 had seen. It was perfect. If I refused, I was a fraud, and 11 weeks of legend went out from under me, and from under the king who had housed me. If I agreed, Hadrian of the Ninefold would have to take the shift in front of 800 people, and Wulfric would find out what everyone in that hall was beginning to wonder, which was whether he still could. 800 people started to applaud, and the king of the Ninefold stood up and said, "There was no miracle. The hall went out like a lamp. There is no wolf singer," he said, into 800 silent people. She did not tame anything. She did not call anything. She is a peat cutter's daughter, who was walking in the wrong wood, in the wrong weather. And she sang a work song about mud because she was frightened of the dark, and I would like every ribbon in this kingdom taken off sale by Sunday. I have never had anything hurt like that in my life, and I want to be honest about it. I stood in the middle of the greatest hall in the north, and had a legend I never asked for, and had spent 11 weeks hating taken away from me in public, and I found out in 1 second that some part of me had been keeping it. He walked out through the far door. Wulfric of the Stone Runs sat down with the expression of a man who has been handed a great deal more than he asked for. Berta, who kept the household stores and had no patience with any of it, found me in the corridor afterward. "You will want to know," she said, "since he will not tell you, and he will not tell me either." She put a slate down on the sill. "Your brother's cottage was retiled in the 3rd week, and the levy was taken off him in the 4th. Your mother's debt to the Stone Runs factor was cleared in the 5th. There is a place held at the hold for you every quarter, whether you are in it or not. And it is paid out of his own coin, and not the household. And it is entered under the name of a man who has been dead for 9 years. That is not possible. It is entered in his own hand," said Berta, "which I have been reading for 30 years, and I would know it upside down in a fire. 11 weeks of a man who could not put his face at me in a public room, and the whole time, quietly, under a dead man's name, out of his own purse. I went and found him in the stable at the 11th hour, because he could not leave through a far door in a stable. 'Retilling,' I said, He did not stop what he was doing with the girth strap for a good 4 seconds, which was how I knew. The cottage needed it. You do not know my brother. I know the roof. He put both hands on the saddle and left them there. It is not a payment. If you take it as a payment, I will have it undone in a week. Then what is it? It is the only thing I have been able to do without being in front of you, he said. The lamp made its noise. Somewhere down the row, a horse moved. 11 weeks, I said. You have not asked me one question about that night. No. Why? Because I remember all of it, said Hadrian of the Ninefold. Every verse, including the third bank. His hands did not move on the saddle. And because on the night I got up out of that, clearing something landed on me that I have no right to, and it landed while you were sitting 4 feet away in the rain being kind to an animal you thought was going to die, and a man does not put a bond on a stranger as a bill for services. So I have kept it off you. That is what the 11 weeks were. That is all they were. I stood in a stable and understood about 9 things at once. And the ribbons? The ribbons, he said, were making you into a thing that would be very easy to take apart, and I would rather be the man who took them off you myself than watch Wulfric of the Stone Runs do it in a year with a better audience. You could have told me. Yes, he said. I have been extremely stupid about all of this for 3 months. I would appreciate it if you would sit down. Because there is worse. Here is the worse, in his own words, in a stable, at the 11th hour. There was no hunt, there was no ambush. He had taken the wound 11 days earlier, in the last action of a winter war that had cost the Ninefold 600 men, 4 of whom had been in his own household since he was a boy, and he had not had it treated, and then he had written an order, sending his own 2nd and 40 men into the Bramble Valley to search a road that he knew he was not on. Then he had gone up into the high wood, and taken the shift, and lain down in a clearing in the rain, and let the arithmetic run. 2 days. He had been out there 2 days when I came in off the road with 4 things in a sheet. You did not tame anything, he said. You sat down. You told me you had nowhere to be, and you sang 9 verses about mud with the worst voice I have ever heard in my life. And I lay there and listened to a woman with nothing at all decide to keep making a noise in the dark, so that whoever was out there would know she was still there. He looked at the lamp, and I got up. That is the whole of it. There is no miracle in it anywhere, and there is one fact in it that will finish me. And now you have it. Because that is the thing. A king who is nearly killed is a king. A king who lay down is an invitation, and every man in 9 valleys can count. Something in me that had been hurt stopped being hurt. Who else knows? Nobody, Oren suspects. Because Oren can read a map and knows where I sent him. Wulfric? Wulfric, he said, has the wound, the missing days, and the order. He does not have the wood. He finally turned around. He will have it within the month. He is not a fool, and there were 60 people in those trees. Then we say it first. No, Hadrian, no, said the king of the Ninefold, and that was the last argument he won with me. Wulfric called the challenge 19 days later, at the turn of the year, on the challenge ground below the hold, in front of 800 people and the heads of all 9 valleys. He did not open with the fight. That is what nobody expects about him, and it is why he was dangerous. He opened with a speech. He laid it out the way you lay out an account. The Winter War. The 600 dead. The wound taken on the 9th day and never treated. The written order sending the search into the Bramble Valley. The 2 days. And then, because he had spent 3 months buying it a piece at a time, the testimony of a rank warrior who had been in those trees, and who had seen an alpha king lying in 4 inches of water in the open with no shelter, no fire, and no attempt at any of it. He did not fall, said Wulfric of the Stone Runs, to 9 valleys. He lay down. Ask him. And Hadrian of the Ninefold, standing in the circle in the rain, did not deny it. He would not. I knew he would not, before he opened his mouth. He has never lied in his life about anything that mattered, and he was not going to start in front of 800 people, and so he stood there, in an iron chain circle, and let the truth take his reign apart, and the sound that went through that ground was the sound of a pack coming loose from its alpha. He was going to lose. Not the fight. The fight would have been a formality either way. He had already lost the thing that a fight decides. There is an iron chain that closes a challenge circle, and there is exactly one law about it. Anyone may enter, uncalled, anyone at all, of any rank, at any time. And the price is your pack. Not your life, the Ninefold has not taken a life for it in 200 years. Your name, your valley, your family, your right to be spoken to by any wolf between the sea and the stone runs. You are walked out. You are nobody, forever, and there is no petition, and no appeal, and no king alive can undo it, including the one you are doing it for. The lawmistress put her hand over mine on the chain and told me, quietly, exactly that. I know, I said. Hadrian shook his head. Once more, I lifted the chain, and I walked into the circle, and I said, in a voice that carried, because a peat cutter's daughter can be heard across a bog in a gale, he is not going to answer you. So I will. I am the only person alive who was in that clearing, and everyone here has spent 3 months singing about it, so you will hear it from the one who was there. Nobody stopped me. That is the other half of the law. There was no miracle, I said. There is no wolf singer. I did not tame anything, and I did not call anything, and I have the worst voice in this kingdom, which most of you have now heard. Here is what is true. He lay down in that wood after the winter that took 600 of your husbands and your sons, 4 of them out of his own hall. And he did not get treated, and he did not build a fire, and he sent his own men into the wrong valley so that nobody would come. That is all true. Wulfric of the Stone Runs has it exactly right, and he has been buying it for 3 months, and he has paid a fair price for it. But he only has half, because the reason I was on the Highwood Road at the 9th hour in a storm was that I had put everything I owned in a sheet and walked out of my brother's house with no destination, at 23, because I could not think of a single reason to be anywhere. That is why I went into that clearing. Not to save anybody. I sat down 4 feet from a dying animal because I was as done as he was, and I sang a song about mud because that is what my family does when we cannot see each other. In the fog, we make a noise, so the next one down the row knows somebody is still there. And he got up. That is the whole miracle, and it is the only one there is. Anybody can lie down. Every person standing on this ground has lain down at least once. He got up, with a hole in him, in the rain, in front of 60 of you. And he has held 9 valleys through the worst winter in living memory, for 3 months since, and you are standing here tonight, in good order, well fed, with your borders quiet, because of the 11 weeks after the night he did not want to be alive. So challenge him for the valleys if you want them. That is a fair thing, and that is what this ground is for. But if any wolf here is thinking of putting him down for what happened in that wood, then you had better walk out to that stupid wall of stones you all built and look at it, because that is not the place where your king nearly died. It is the place where he decided not to. The rain came down on 800 people for a long moment. Then a woman at the front of the eastern reaches sat down on the wet ground, which is what you do in the Ninefold when you will not stand for a challenge, and then the man beside her did it. And then it went through that crowd like water going through sand. Wulfric of the Stone Runs stood in a circle in front of a pack that was sitting down, and withdrew, because there was nothing else on the ground to do. And then the law mistress, who had said nothing and done nothing and had no choice at all, said the words that walked me out of the pack. She had to. She wept doing it. There is no petition, and no appeal, and no king alive can undo it. And Hadrian of the Ninefold stood 11 feet away, with his hands open at his sides, and could not stop a single word of it. And I had known that when I put my hand on the chain. I walked off that ground with 4 things in a sheet, and it was raining, and this time I did have a destination, which was anywhere. It took 11 days to get down to the coast, and I had a fever by the 4th. Lung fever, on the road, in winter, is a thing that kills people my size regularly, and I have no story about it, because I do not remember 6 of those days. A carter's family took me in at Saltbridge, and I owe them everything, and they have a house on the Holds Roll now, and will forever. It took my voice, not my speaking voice. I can talk. I am told, talk at very great length. But the thing that goes up over a bog in a gale, the thing that carries 9 verses down a row of cutters in fog, that is gone. It went in about the 6th day, and it did not come back, and the healers at the coast, and the 2 he sent afterward, all say the same thing, in the same careful way. The wolf singer of the high wood cannot sing. I have made my peace with it. Mostly, it took a year. He has not made his peace with it at all, and I have stopped expecting him to. He came to Saltbridge on the 16th day. He did not come with a pardon, because there is no such thing, and he did not come with an offer of a loophole either, which I once said, because I would have refused it, and he knew I would have refused it. He came with the pack, 400 of them, on the coast road, in the rain, which is a thing that had not happened in the Ninefold since the founding, because the only body that can take a walked-out wolf back in is the whole body, at once, by acclamation, and it has to be asked for by somebody with no rank at all. A 9-year-old girl asked for it, the one who cried on my brother's doorstep about her aunt's wedding. 800 people said yes on the coast road in the rain, and I have never heard a sound like it, and I never will again. And I stood in a doorway at Saltbridge and could not have sung one note of it, even if my voice had still been in me. The kiss came after, on the road, in front of 400 people, and it was 1 breath long, and it was not what I expected, which is that nothing in me caught fire. Something in me set down. 23 years of being a spare part in somebody else's house, put down on a wet coast road. At once, he said the bond had landed in a clearing 11 weeks before he had any right to it, and that he had spent 3 months keeping it off me, and that he was done keeping it off me, and would I please tell him to stop being noble because he had run out of ways to do it himself. I told him to stop being noble. He is not. Now. He is many things. He has never been noble at me again, and I would not permit it. Wulfric of the Stone Runs was not executed, and was not exiled. Hadrian did something colder. He put him in charge of the winter relief for the 600 the widows, the holdings, the whole ledger of that war, and made him ride it, valley by valley, in person, for 3 years. He is in the 4th year now. He asked to stay on. I do not know what to do with that, and neither does anyone else. It was not clean afterward. 2 of the 9 valleys have never entirely got over hearing what their king did in that wood, and there are men who will always look at him a certain way, and he lets them. The law mistress who walked me out cannot be in a room with me, and I have told her 3 times that there is nothing to forgive, and it has not helped once. The ribbons came back. He gave up. A year on, this is what my life is. The wall of stones is still out there. People still walk to it. There is nothing I can do about that, and I have stopped trying. And last spring I gave up entirely, and had a proper marker put in, and the words on it are mine, and they say, "He got up." That is all. No name, no date. Half the pilgrims think it is about the wolf. We went out there together in the autumn, on the anniversary, on foot, no guard, no banner. It took the better part of the afternoon, and it rained the entire way, obviously, and it is a clearing. That is the thing nobody who walks out there ever quite gets over. 900 paces off the wood road. A stone lip on the north side. A wet, flat place about the size of a barn with a low wall in the middle of it that people keep putting shoes on. He stood in it for a while, with his hands behind his back. "It is very small," he said. "It is. I thought it was enormous. I was in it for 2 days, and I thought it went on for miles." "That will have been the mud," I said. "There is a verse." And the king of the ninefold put his head back in the rain and laughed until he had to sit down on the wall, and I could not sing him a single note of it, so I said the words instead, all 9 verses, out loud, badly, in the wet, to a man on a heap of stones. He knew every one. He said the third bank with me. So tell me, do you think he would ever have said one word of any of it, if Wulfric had not forced it? He swears he would have. Orin says he would have gone to his grave with it. I am genuinely undecided after a year of marriage, and I would like some outside opinions. Tell me your theory below. And if you want to know what came off the coast road last autumn with my mother's name on the bill of lading, because that is a whole other story, and it took the roof off this hold comment the third bank, and stay with me. Hadrian and I are not finished. Follow along, and I will tell you that one too. And wherever you are listening from tonight, if you cannot see anybody out there, make a noise anyway. You have no idea who is lying 4 feet away in the dark, waiting to find out whether anyone else is still up.